All right, so I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Tuesday, February 7th at 6:08 p.m. Sorry, we were getting our technical difficulties. So, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Teresa Amos present.
Chad Sexton Duranian present.
And Veronica Calker. All right, please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to 1.3, I'd like to announce the meeting is being recorded. It's live on Channel 9 and it will be put up on the town YouTube channel after the fact. Chairman's additions or deletions. Our appointment 2.1 with the state representative and our state senator is going to be moved to 2.21. So I'll confirm those appointments after the fact. We're going to have a clerical addition under 3.1, and for 3.1 and 3.3, we now have exact dates and for the appointments. So just so everyone's aware. Those are the things that I have. Is there anything else?
Are we doing the clerical addition for the prior appointment as well?
Yeah. That was the clerical addition under 3.1 for the prior, should I say for the prior
appointment?
Yeah, for a prior meeting hall gallery committee appointment. That's the clerical addition. Let me call that 3.0. All right. Anything else? All right. So with that, I'll move to the public comment period. Is there any public comments, either in the room or on Zoom? I would need to see a raised hand. All right. Seeing none. I'm moving on to the minutes for September 20th, 2022, January 10th, 2023, and January 17th, 2023. So let's start with September 20th, 2022. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from September 20th, 2022.
Second.
All right, any comments? Please, I didn't have a comment. Can I say something that is like, I don't want to change the minutes, but it's something that I noticed when I was reading the minutes. This is just for futures, and Eric, it's a cable advisory committee because our contract is up in December of 2025, and there's a 30 to 36 month process required for renewal of the Comcast contract. It's in the minutes here from September 20th, and I didn't get to the plot.
Okay.
I noticed that when I was reading through them, but I don't have any changes. How about either of you, Chad or Teresa?
I do.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the minutes for September 20th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and September 20th minutes are approved. Thank you. Going on to January 10th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for January 10th, 2023?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from January 10th, 2023.
And is there a second?
A second.
All right, so any comments on this? I have at least one. I have only one. So I wanted to check the spelling of the professional engineer with Tag and Bond. Lou Sirocco. Is that how he spells his last name? Because I thought it was Scirocco. And the only reason I think that is because I think I've seen it spelled out somewhere. I don't know if it's important or not.
Let me see if I have anything else.
It would be on the documents. It's just from looking at stuff. I don't know why I think that, but I think I do. I could be totally wrong. I didn't look it up. So I just have check spelling under that. I underlined the last name. Anybody else have anything? No, manager. Okay, so motion to approve with checking the spelling on the Tiger Bond engineer's document. All those in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed, so the ayes have it, and the January 10th minutes are approved. All right, the next one is January 17th. So is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 17th, 2024.
Second.
All right, I have, it's just the formatting thing, one formatting thing on this, and it's under 3.4, appoint Cheryl Aldrich to the Townsend Meeting Hall Committee. I think that, so this is on page 2, about halfway down, where it says Eric Flagel. I think we want to put a space in there and move that down to the DLTA grant submission, because it's about the MBTA community requirements and town bylaws. And so I think it should be under 4.1 instead of 3.4. So it just needs a space, couple spaces to move it down. That's all. Other than that, I was fine with the minutes. Anybody else have any comments?
Well, I think these are wonderful. Thank you, Sabrina.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor of approving the minutes? Teresa, did you have anything before I?
No.
You didn't? Okay. Please say aye.
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 Aye. So minutes approved. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to appointments and hearings. We have a 6:10 appointment that is being rescheduled to 2:21. And our next hearing isn't until 6:45, or our meeting is until 6:45. So I was just going to move on to appointment. Are we good with that?
Okay.
So we do have our people here.
We could just, since they're here, we could go forward. Although I know that maybe we should do the appointments through the one that someone's waiting for, and then move up our here.
I feel like, what if people saw this and said they're going to tune in at 6:45? So that's the reason I would keep it there. Although we have everybody here, so I think we should move down to 3.1, 3.0.
3.0 as amended.
I mean, I think, as the chair wishes.
Okay, we're going to wait for 6:45 just in case someone said, well, we aren't going to tune into the meeting until 6:45. So moving on to appointments, we added 3.0, Cheryl Aldrich's appointment from last time. This is for the Meeting Hall Gallery Committee. Just to be specific, her term will be through 2024, and her appointment is as the Senior Center appointee to the Meeting Hall Gallery Committee. The Meeting Hall Gallery Committee, thanks to our town clerk who has enlightened me, have 3 openings right now, one of which we appointed last time. And so I should just, let me back up. 3 openings, one for a term to expire in 2024, and 2 to expire in 2025.
Yeah.
In addition, actually, here's the email. There are 5 positions on this committee. One is a representative from the library, one a representative from the senior center, and 3 are at-large appointments. If we appoint the appointment today, we will have 4 at-large appointments. So we need a library appointee, a senior center appointee as well. So I was thinking that we would clarify the appointment from our last meeting for Cheryl Aldrich and make it as the senior center appointee for a term to expire at the end of June in 2024.
As long as Cheryl's okay with that, I'm okay with that.
I can't remember if there was anything on the form. I don't think so. I think it was just appointment.
Yeah, I know.
And she is a senior center member. This is the person who was from out of state.
Right.
Who is a senior center member and attends there regularly.
Okay.
So I was thinking that we could make her the senior center appointee and have her run through June of 2024.
Well, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion if you want to entertain it.
I would entertain a motion, yes.
I move that we amend the appointment for Cheryl Aldrich from our last meeting to entail that Cheryl Aldrich will be part of the Meeting Hall Gallery Committee as a senior center appointee effective until June 2024.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, so bill has been amended. So is there a motion to appoint Rachel King to the Meeting Hall Gallery Committee for to fill an at-large term to expire June 30th, 2025?
2025?
Yeah, because as Kathy told me in the email, there are 3 open positions as she saw it. I don't know if she has, if Cheryl has yet been sworn in from our last meeting. So there are 3 open positions, 1 to expire in 2024 that we just amended from last time, and 2 to expire in 2025.
Okay.
All right.
Make a motion to appoint Rachel King to the Meeting Hall Committee at the at-large position for a term of 2 years to expire on June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so it's unanimous. Welcome, Rachel.
Welcome, Rachel. Thank you.
We now have 1 opening on the Meeting Hall Committee, and I am assuming it's the
There
library.
needs to be a library.
So, so that's where we are. So we should probably look at the posting for that, make sure it's as it should be.
And send that over to Stacy or the library.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. 3.1. 3.2. Is there a motion to appoint? Let me get there. To appoint 3 members to the Patriot Communications Board, the Patriot Rec. Those being the police chief, the fire chief, and the BOS appointee. So it would be Chief Sartell, Chief Shepherd, and Michael Grimley as the BOS appointee. They are the 3 that are currently serving, and they would serve for the next year through December 31st, 2020. So is there a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint 3 members to continue to serve on the Patriot Rec Committee. The police chief, the fire chief, and as BOS appointee, Michael Gridway, through December 31st, 2023.
Second.
right, any further discussion?
Yes, can you just, I don't know, Michael, can you just tell me what his, role is as our representative?
They would be working, and Eric, I'll answer what I can, but they're working with the communication center to make sure everything's working as they should be, to see that we're all in compliance with any state laws and that it's working appropriately for all three towns and the
Yeah.
communication.
Michael is the kind of the TAC person who works with the fire department, so that's his role in our internal fire department operation, and so he's the logical person, especially during the early setup when we're trying to make sure that all of the connections from the town to the center are operating smoothly. He's the logical person to have on.
Yeah, he's been on
So
that
it's
since
that background that he provides us. Thank you.
the tech, and he's also been there right from the start when we went over there, so he's familiar with the whole process.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next appointment.
We didn't
Good to
go.
go.
Oh, we didn't vote. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so did we have the motion?
You had a motion.
Yes, we have a motion.
Motion made, seconded. You vote.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Our favorite rep is appointed. All right, our next motion is to appoint Ann Valaser to the American Flag Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2026. This is a replacement of a resignation that came in May for one of the members who resigned. So we got that all sorted out, so we are good to go. This is a 5-member committee. So is there a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Ann Vassalette to the American Flag Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Any further discussion?
All
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Ann.
Welcome, Ann. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, our last appointment. Our last appointment is to appoint Natalie Call as our Veteran Services Officer effective today, February 7th, 2022. So is there a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Natalie Cole as a Veteran Service Officer, VSO, effective today, February 7th, 2023.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm just, this is a paid position in the town. So why is this appointment versus, it's just, why is it an appointment?
I think because we always appoint, I think you're thinking about terminology maybe. I mean, we appoint the town administrator, we appoint the police officers,
Yeah.
we appoint everybody. So,
We just minus the sword thing.
I thought there was different terminology when it was a paid position. I don't know what made me think that.
I suppose we could use hire versus appoint, but it's appoint. So,
No,
but it is a paid
yeah.
position. Yeah.
Welcome, Natalie.
Doesn't it have something to do with, because they have to be sworn in, you have to be appointed in order to be
Is that
sworn
what
in?
okay.
It has something to do with that old English
Yeah,
thing.
just my question. I'm glad she did. Nothing.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So
Welcome aboard, Natalie.
All right, are we doing?
Yeah, we got that.
All right, it is 6:27, so I'm going to continue on. To 4.1. This is further discussion of the 182 Warren Road property. So I wanted to share my screen and just give me a quick minute. Pull this up and see if I've got it. All right, let me, I wanted to pull the property up on the zoning map. I think it's map 31. I thought I had this also. But I don't. All right, and then I also wanted to bring up Mass GIS. Just give me a second. This is the property that was recommended by Town Properties to be sold by the town of Townsend. And so it is currently owned by the town. I believe it was a tax title taking. So I'm going to Mapper. I'm going to pull this up here. The address is 182 Warren Road. So give me a second and I will share my screen, perhaps. There's the go. Recommended areas, natural heritage data, NHSP, NHS. All right, so all right, so let me share the screen. This one is working, so let me just do that. All right, the property that we are looking at is map 31, lot 36-0. And hopefully I have the right side. If I can make this bigger. Scroll on. So the property that we're looking at is right here. It's 11.94 acres. And it has a bungalow from, I believe it was built in 1927, according to the assessor's record. So now I'm going to go and share a different view with you. Mm-hmm. This is Mass GIS. Let me just, and what I have here, I have the two natural heritage endangered species overlays on. And if you can see this, this is the property that we're looking at from that map. This is the Hunting Hills Wildlife Management Area. And it's all in priority habitat 2035. You can't see it, but the hash mark, you can't see it so well, but the hash marks are here. All of this is priority habitat, that entire lot. So I have thoughts about this. I think it is a perfect place to cut off maybe 3 acres or so up about in here, which would entail a motion to survey the property. Take this piece and second motion would be a discussion with Habitat for Humanity to see if we could get in there on their list for either rehabbing that property or tearing down and rebuilding on the existing footprint. And then third motion would be to talk to Fish and Wildlife to see if they would be interested in purchasing the back piece of the property that abuts the Hunting Hills Wildlife Management Area. Fourth motion would be to take, if they were interested, to take any funds from the sale of that property to be directed into the Affordable Housing Trust for future affordable housing build out somewhere else in town, and also to allow any pilots in the future, because we do get pilot payment in lieu of taxes payment from the state for all of the state-owned land in Townsend. we receive right now, I think it's upwards of 450,000 a year for the open space. So where everybody complains about the state owning all this land, they have been really good about paying in lieu of tax, which always goes into the general fund. Well, I would like to direct the little bit that might come if they're even interested in purchasing, and I would say it's probably pretty positive that they are, since it's abuts that wildlife management area, and it is NAGSP priority habitat for rare species and estimated habitat for rare wildlife. So,
which is a long term for unbuildable.
Long term for that,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see that there's a stream going through right here.
Yep.
So in any event, those are my thoughts on it. So it is open to thoughts from my fellow selectmen and our town administrator. This is owned by the town of Townsend, and it is assessed at $182,000 right now. The sale to Fish and Wildlife, because it would be backland, no frontage, it would be certainly less than that. So we wouldn't be getting huge dollars if they were willing to purchase. I've given my thought. We looked at this before and we've had time to think.
Can you easily remove the overlay just for a minute? So I understand what you're trying to do, but if I'm looking at it from what I'm seeing, on that first part that you're anticipating cutting off, it looks to me that that is wetland right at the front of that. That blue spot?
This is wetland.
Okay,
over
what
here.
about across, right across?
Maybe here.
Yeah.
That's the adjacent
That's
property.
the adjacent property. The property that we're looking at.
Oh,
is
it is
this
that.
one.
Okay, I see. Yep, I got it.
And
That's
this
the
is the building right here.
Okay, so we wouldn't, and the stream is far enough back that wouldn't do it.
Well, there would be some constraint, you know, and this is almost 12 acres. So I'm guesstimating for cutoff, but I would want to cut it off so that you're kind of far enough out that.
Well, yeah, you want to cut it off at around 3 acres, 3 acres,
Yeah.
so that it's a legal building lot.
Yeah.
But no, you don't need to give them more than 3 acres because they're not going to be able to put more than one unit there.
Right.
Habitat
But
anyway.
And you would probably have to stay with the existing footprint. So I don't know that. That wouldn't be our call.
Yeah, you might be. The ZBA you might not be able to ask them. Though.
And I know you can't tell this without a survey, but is just in that wildlife protection area alone, is it buildable once it's in that protection area?
The buildability of that back area is not. You can.
No, I'm talking about the front piece that we're talking about cutting off.
Oh, yeah.
There's already a house there, so you're
right.
You'd be able to either redo that house or
I don't think that automatically gave you the rights to redo.
Because it's already disturbed area. And that is we could sell the whole thing for Fish and Wildlife if they are interested. I mean, we could do that, but it just seems like an opportunity because it does have an existing
Right, yeah, I'm
building.
just exploring your opportunity to make something of it, of the front part of it, because I like that idea. I'm not sure, even though there's something on there now, if that's going to be feasible. I'd love for it to be feasible. We just have to explore.
I think it would be. I think you might have to stay in the existing footprint. I don't know if that structure has been completely abandoned.
I believe it's abandoned.
That might make it a more challenging. If you've got 3 acres,
it's
built.
think it's like, what, it's fewer than 200 foot. And I think typically you have, when that's the case, you have to stay within the existing footprint. I think, I'm not certain, but I know that that's what's happened at other in town that don't have the required frontage. Might be a situation.
They need to, oh, sorry. If we did go Habitat for Humanity, once a unit like that, I don't know anything too much about that program, but once a unit like that is finished, is that my understanding that's just donated to a family and they pay taxes to the town, but that's the end
I'll
of
let you
Correct.
know.
That's my wheelhouse there. First, I want to start at the 20,000 foot level. I appreciate the thought because we do need to increase affordable housing in towns, and I think this is a great opportunity to do so. The recommendation from Town Properties basically said sale or auction of that. So with the thought that Fish and Game was going to buy the back portion of it, I think that would be a great thing that we would do. Number one, it would relinquish the property and let the Fish and Game take care of it per se, but also protect because it is protected, and I think I don't think if we sold it or put it up for auction that it would be the best use of the land as far as the conservation portion of it. Having said that, Habitat for Humanity, it would be considered an affordable unit for the town. An affordable unit in the town would be in perpetuity as always affordable unit. So it would continue on. There would be a deeded restriction that would be placed on the parcel, and that it would have to remain a affordable house or in affordable housing. If the individual that it was deemed to wanted to sell it, yes, it is given to them, but they still have the deed restriction on there. If they want to sell it, they have to follow the affordable housing process to do that, to retain that deed restriction that's on there. It's also a plus for the town because we would be able to put that in our inventory. And we need more inventory because we had lost some inventory because we didn't have it protected like it is. The last part, and I want to address both portions of what Madam Chair had brought up. This is very, very important for us to continue to fund the Affordable Housing Trust. In the past, we have had situations where an affordable unit, there was no interest in it for whatever reason it was, and it was sold at market value, and that market value should have gone back to the town. With the difference
For affordable housing.
Correct. You know, so anything above the affordable housing price, that money should have gone back to the town. If it did in the past, we there's a lot of logistics to it, but the town never saw it, or it went into general fund, or however it happened. Part of the reason why the housing authority wanted to make sure that we had a housing trust is to preserve these funds to continue with the affordable housing for the town. So I agree 100% that we need to make sure that any monies that are brought for this parcel of land should go back to the housing trust to keep that funded. So I'm in agreement with what you're laying out.
So even though there's some conditions on the property, it is deeded to the family that's selected by Habitat for Humanity. Are there any tax benefits, or they pay the regular tax rates like anybody else in town?
I'm not sure if there's any. There's not.
The regular tax.
The regular tax is set.
Right. I do think if there's a deed restriction on a property that limits the value of the property, that impacts the assessment.
The assessment, but they still pay the same rate.
But yeah, it's paying the same rate.
Like it might affect their assessment, just like the houses on Devon's, the land it's deeded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But if you look at where, the Townsend is actually in a unique situation and has been in a unique situation regarding affordable housing, because we have some very affluent communities that are part of our county. Our average actually, when you put an affordable unit, the affordable unit looks like it's market price because of these affluent communities that we have.
Yeah.
So it's, we're in a good position to actually retain the funds, but keep, there's a lot of affordable housing right now. If you look at the breakdown, you have teachers, you have municipal workers, you have firefighters, you have police officers that are making up the majority of the affordable housing in the state of Massachusetts. So it is really kind of preserving what we have for municipalities as far as affordability is concerned.
So is our first step to do a survey and see what's the most feasible separation of the property, and then go from there?
I think two things. One is to talk to Fish and Game and assess their interest.
Okay.
And then to if they are, then discuss a survey and how we're going to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, because I mean, it's possible that could be put in the 5-year plan for the Affordable Housing Trust to fund that, because that's really the purpose of it. If we're going to Habitat for Humanity, so they talk to Fish and Game, assess the interest, do the survey, talk to Habitat for Humanity, and see where they are as far as all this goes, to see if it's realistic. So those are the things I would refer.
Couldn't just throwing it out there, if it's retained by the town right now, wouldn't we be able to apply for a DLTA grant for a survey on that? For affordability?
Well, we're going to talk later about the one stop.
It's possible.
Because you did that on Dudley Road.
For who pays?
I think we had a grant, a DLTA grant for a
DLTA grant?
I think so. I thought we did.
We can certainly investigate if there are.
Yeah, we could figure it out. But the one stop, there's stuff in here that looks interesting that maybe we could somehow, see if there's funds for that. But
there's ways that
there are ways.
Yeah.
We can worry about funding it later. But I think okay, there's someone raising a hand here. Let me finish the discussion before I go further. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm all for it. And just throwing things out there to see what sticks. I really would like to follow up with this Habitat for Humanity. So I think we throw out 2 and see if they do surveying as part of their process.
All right. So
I think we should.
We're in agreement with the plan.
Yeah.
So then let's have a motion to explore with Habitat for Humanity and with Fish and Wildlife the
interest in the property.
And then
we can come back.
And then we'll come back to the table here and go with the next motion. So is there a motion to explore with Habitat for Humanity and Fish and Game?
Do you want to take the individual that was before him?
Yeah.
All right.
Here. I'll see people in the audience better.
I forgot the question.
So, Mike V, could you introduce yourself and put your camera on, please, to discuss with us whatever your raised hand is for? And unmute, please.
Oh, hey, hold on one second. Let me just try to get my camera on. That's what I was working on.
Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm in my car. I actually had to pull over because I was listening. I just had a question for you guys. Have you guys? So I'm Mike Verosco. I actually live at the property next door. Has anyone on the board currently walked that property?
I have not walked it. No.
Okay, so just to kind of give a little bit of background, because I've lived next to it for 4 years. I had talks with the TA. I've trying to figure out what was going on with this property now for about 4 years. There's multiple structures that are collapsed. There's probably over 1,000 tires back there. It's sitting on ledge about, I don't know, maybe 200 feet back. So the back part going to Fish and Game would not be bad. My concerns is it's a 1940s bungalow with, I don't know what kind of materials they were using back then to build it. There's an oil tank with oil down there because there was a squatting situation about 18 months ago, maybe 24 months ago, where the town did have to board up the property because there were some squatters just living inside there. I came home from work one day and they had put some of the leftover clothes from the house in the windows to block it.
Thanks, Mike. I think what we'll do is go forward with exploring, and if that's what we vote, and go from there. So,
okay, I just kind of want to see if you guys knew like what it was before they kind of getting into it with Habitat, because it's not going to be an inexpensive tear down in the least.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of what we're exploring, just to see what. But I appreciate your feedback, and that's we did. I know that Veronica and I were both on the board with Joe, that we agreed to the police go over and board that kind of stuff. So at that time, yes, I personally went over there and looked at it, so I'm aware of what the situation is.
All right, yeah, perfect. If you guys ever want, feel free to reach out. You guys can go drive down my driveway and look in and see what it is. There's also an open well on the property, just so you know, as well.
There are properties in town with open wells. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
We
Mike.
appreciate it.
No problem at all.
All right. So is there a motion to go forward with exploring with both Habitat for Humanity and Fish and Game?
I make a motion that we go forward to explore the property on 182 Warren Road with Habitat for Humanity and Fish and Game.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
So we'll move forward with that. Okay, with that, thank you for coming in. We're going to go up to 2.2, our 6:45 meeting with the Town and School Committee representative. So if you two could come up here to the table, that would be great. That way our Al doesn't have to go crazy trying to here. Sheriff, yeah. And thank you for coming in. Absolutely. I apologize for the 5 minutes delay. So we asked you to come in today because we want to talk about the school budget and other things of that sort. Okay. So we're glad you came in. I know I was at the budget meeting yesterday. Eric and Shaz were the two reps that have been attending all the budget meetings.
Feel so close when we're watching, because it's like nobody sees anything.
Yeah.
Face isn't on there, and I'm like, here, is it just me? No, there are 100 people watching.
I know. Quite a few of the budget meetings. Nice to see that kind of.
It was a very good presentation.
Not just people watching. I wish more people would actually participate.
Well, it's hard to
take-
participate. That's the problem.
can.
And you were asked to ahead of time, at least the invitation I got. So if you wanted to speak, you had to put in ahead of time. And I know that if either of my fellow selectmen are there, then it becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we wanted to make sure that we met with you before the budget talks. We want to talk about budget, but I think also just in general, we would really appreciate it if the school committee came to our meetings more regularly to provide us with reports so that we know what's going on. I think now, I mean, we do have Harrison posting all the meetings now, but I didn't always know when the meetings were. And if you don't have kids in school, you don't follow what's going on in school, so you don't necessarily know. So, so where do we want to start?
Well, if I may start, I had sent you guys an email when I first was elected to just introduce myself and say I was a liaison And I still remember the one comment of, we never have seen this before. And that really like shocked me, because the selectmen really need to be closely involved with the school committee. I mean, we share a lot in common. We take a lot of heat for things that we're not responsible for. And I respect that. Having said that, I just believe that the communication between the school board and the selectmen really need to be beefed up a lot more than what it has. I noticed that on your website, you guys had put in new duties, I guess the committee duties, and I think those are what I wanted to talk to you guys about too, in general, public relations and education planning. Okay, those are two things that we as a town not only provide you with the financial part of it, but there are other services that we do provide for the school that I really think that we need to work together. One of which would be our recreation department. We do a lot of things for the kids in town that I think the school and the recreation department should work a little closer together than they do. I think it's really important. Since you guys are reach to the school committee, I just was kind of hoping that we could keep that dialogue open so that you could express our thoughts on how we can be a little more open and be able to work together.
The only thing we need, the unique situation is if we were a one town district, the relationship with the rec department and the one town, it's a much easier match.
Yeah.
The issue that we run into is money that we're spending on the building, money that we're spending on personnel is pooled money from the three towns. So we do need to be cognizant of spending everybody's money to help the one town. We want to help you as much as we can, but we can't lose money.
Yep.
Because it's not the town's money, only this town's money that we're working with.
Yeah, and I'm aware of that.
But I've always been very open to working with the community, especially anything that helps their students within each community, the recreation department. I've always been very, very much in favor of trying to do as much as we can.
Right. And the one thing that I think that I would like to open up with the school right now is we have our TCAM, our local access television, would be a wonderful educational thing for students at the school. We had a good start with it in the previous high school, but since the new high school is built, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. Okay. There's a lot of technology that we're investing within our own organization here. I would like to be able to, we are talking internally as far as setting up our network, but we also want to reach out to Ashby and to Pepperell since they're in the region to make sure that we are all connected. So if there's a football game that you guys want to be able to play, all towns can see the football game. So those are the kinds of things that I'm looking at. So it's not just one.
At Tissot, there is a media center that Pepperell Media, I forget their exact name, their group has sponsored, I think, in the past, and they kind of they have the TV studio in Tissot, and the high school was built with the capability of having a media center, green screen, and a whole bunch of different technology. I'm not sure. I know in the past when we first started up, we had trouble getting qualified teachers, but we have that, and I'd have to go back and take a look and see how far they have come at developing that. Yeah,
and we're looking as far as connecting them up to if they connect through us, then we'd be able to connect with the other facilities, both in Pepperell and to Ashby, so that they can at least put it on their cable. But these are the things that I'm talking about that benefits all three communities as opposed to not making any advances. And public relations, that's the other part that I wanted to make sure that we just need to be upfront with each other in regards to what's going on. And right now it's the budget, and it's always the budget. We always have to do that. I'm going to speak for myself when I say that. I think we need to work together with that. We need to get the same message out to the community, and we need to work together to see what we can do to fix it. There may be some voice or one voice out there that's going to throw something at us that we don't even know about. Yes. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for. It's not a Hail Mary, but pretty close. But the more that I think we communicate, we can help you, you can help us. That's
we're trying to do the budget forums and have the meetings that was started, I believe, back under Joan Landers. Really trying to work with the town on budget and having starting back in November, December, when our process was just really kind of starting and your process was kind of starting, have those talks and continue them throughout the budget season, because as you know, we never get any numbers from the state until the last minute. So we're always in budget season right up until our meeting.
Yeah.
Because anything and everything usually changes by May.
Yeah. And we've had four budget meetings that we've met with you, and we've expressed our thoughts, the same thoughts, but we've expressed our thoughts on all four of the meetings. Again, going forward, if you can express to the rest of the committee that we're willing to help you, with what we need to do, but it's got to be a mutual effort.
Yeah.
Thank you for entertaining me.
You're welcome. So Teresa, do you have anything?
Yeah, I guess what I just want to say is, my real concern is, not this year, but next year. Okay, which I think everybody's real concerned with the contract coming up. So if we have to have an override this year, and a second one next year, it's just not going to be feasible, and it's just going to be extremely difficult for our citizens to take on that burden.
Absolutely. I'm a citizen.
I am preaching to the choir, and there's going to be, I can't imagine a way to message this, to get this messaging across. So my concern with when talking about this year is what would you say to somebody to convince two towns to approve an override? And if they didn't, how would you, then it would go back to you. You'd have to adjust your budget. What would you have to give up because it failed?
First, as far as why we need the budget passed in the two towns, even if it's over.
No, I get all of that.
I
So I'm trying to what would be the PR campaign behind that? Okay, let's say you come down and say we only need 4%, even 4%. We're going to have to ask for an override, right? So what would your pamphlets that you'd be handing out and tell them don't forget to go out and vote so that the 2%. And then if you can't get all the senior citizens to do it and two towns fail it, how do you go back and readjust your budget? I'm just trying to get your plan. What's your plan B?
Well, our message is what it usually is in any budget year, whether we need an override or not, is we're trying to provide the students with the best education and the best chance for success in life as we possibly can. This year, the last 2 years with the pandemic has put extra stress on the schools trying to provide for these students that have fallen behind, that have a lot of social emotional issues from being isolated in their houses and not with their friends. Even the youngest, you're talking about kindergartners or kids that were supposed to be in kindergarten, those kids who learn through play, they weren't with their peers playing. They were by themselves. And so we have a lot that we need to catch them up on, both socially and as well as the schoolwork. So our message really is we're trying to get everybody recovered from the pandemic. It took a big toll, whether people notice it or not, on the children. Adults are noticing the toll it took on them. That would be my message. As a school committee, we haven't really coalesced around any kind of PR or message out, but that would be my message out to the communities. And unfortunately, it takes services, and services take teachers and specialists to try and help these children recover and then get back onto their normal path that we've had them on. If the budgets fail and it comes back, we do have the superintendent at this point in time looking at where we can cut. He has indicated at least right now, unfortunately, it's staff, because that is our largest budget numbers is our staff. And if we have to cut the staff, we're cutting services for the students. It's never a good scenario, but we'll take a look and see what we can do. We don't have that plan yet, but we're always looking at that and what we can, if we have to.
Do you look at the administrative level as
Yeah,
well?
we usually look everywhere. You know, first places we always look are areas that don't affect the children. So if we run a fairly lean administration. We have for many years. We've added a couple of positions in the last 4 or 5 years, but we had been so lean for so long. We were finding that it was affecting the curriculum across the district, not having somebody or having somebody in administration looking at K-12 throughout the whole district, which is why we brought in 1 or 2 positions there to help with our curriculum, which ultimately helps the teachers and the students. But yeah, the administration is one place to look if we can get away with a little bit less, spread out some of the responsibilities, and then it just kind of, we keep looking down. It's a hard decision to make.
One thing, and I'm only asking this, remember, I was in your spot before. So I'm just asking because I'm listening to what people. Last night you presented the projected enrollment, right? And it was only like 20 more students. Right?
Yes, that is what we're getting from the professional.
Right.
We don't do anything with projecting. That is from different institutions. I forget which ones gave us that one last night. But they look at birth rates, they look at trends, they look at where people are moving and everything like that. And that is what we've been getting for a number of years now. From 15 years ago, we had a decline. We had been very high about 15 years ago. We probably had about 400 more students in the district. And it was predicted we were going to come down to this level. And then it was going to steady out. And that's what they keep predicting right now, is that it's going to kind of stay steady with not much gain, not much loss.
It was kind of surprising to see the statistics in regards to the elementary, the sizes of the classrooms right now, and the fact that we have a lot of homeschool in going forward. When that shifts, how are we going to support that if it does shift? Because those were substantial numbers.
That's one of the concerns that we have. Because we have more students that come back from homeschooling, we're going to need more teachers.
Exactly.
So and that was like what I was trying to get at, because you predicted you need 15 more teachers for 20 more students. That's how it looks like on paper. But if you break it down from the statistics there, so that's what we're looking like. How do we PR that? Like, how do you say? And is it really like people saw it as teachers, but it like in those kindergarten situations, was it a teacher, or are you talking about a special ed aide, or like is it teachers in all of those situations that you said you need? Was it 15 faculty members? That I don't think it was teachers. If I look back in my head,
there were some teachers we have added this year because the class size got too large. And obviously those teachers are going to stay on the roll for next year. They're predicting, looking at the class sizes, if we get 1 or 2 move-ins or 1 or 2 people coming back from homeschooling, that we're going to need more teachers in those classrooms as well. Because our current policy that's been in place for many, many years, we finally just put it down on paper. But as classrooms get up to 27, 28 students in the elementary school, is we will add some paraprofessionals to help out with the students, so that's a large amount. Once it gets to 30, we've always split it up. That's just way too much. And in some cases, like we found, at the 29, if we had 4 classrooms that needed a paraprofessional, and we can in one school, and we could just have 1 teacher instead of 4 more paraprofessionals, it was cheaper to have the teacher. And so we made an extra classroom and brought the classroom size down that way.
At one point, and just the last question, I promise. At one point in Townsend, I swear that classroom sizes were growing largest in Townsend and smaller in Pepperell and Ashby. And we have offered an opportunity, and we were calling it school choice. I don't know how we're getting away with that. And offering elementary and middle school Townsend children, or I think we're looking to, I don't even remember if it was got approved, the ability to go to schools, Hawthorne Brook and Spalding, the elementary school in Spalding. Is that opportunity still available? If somebody
Inter-district choice,
yeah,
it is with some caveats. So we do have a policy that students can go. We don't provide transportation for those students.
no,
That would be
never did.
well. We actually have transportation for every child in this district going to their
Homeschool, right.
but the amount of money that it would cost us in transportation to get a couple of students way out from another town over to here, it's just prohibitive. So we do have a policy on that. I had to review it for all the details of it.
But that would the only way to address those classroom size is if parent chooses to take their child out of
That's
inter-district.
the only thing that we offer right now. It has
and they would be responsible for transportation.
right.
Okay.
I mean, we do always have the ability to change the districting, and so as a district, if we haven't discussed this at all, but we can say, half of these kids from Townsend are going to go to Pepperell, and half of these kids are going to go to Ashby. The school committee has that authority. Obviously, the school can't do anything that drastic. But it's not something that we've ever really kind of discussed.
Yeah, we tried. Don't do it. And don't try to get anybody from New Hampshire in the district either.
Yeah, we've had, I think Mason a couple of times has asked to.
Yeah, we did too. Okay, thank you very much.
So my questions are more kind of in the practical sense, and it has to do with budget, which I understand the budget. The reason for everything, but have you thought about how you're going to roll out the need for an override for the community?
Again, that has not come up as formal discussions as of yet right now this year. I know it's just started to be talked about, obviously with the size of the budget that we have right now. We're still hoping to get it down. But the discussions we need to have. We now have a communications subcommittee. I imagine they would probably kind of take the reins on how to communicate that out, working very closely with the superintendent. And again, like I said earlier, my message is it really is about the situation and recovering from COVID. But there's a lot of other nuances to let the community know why we need the extra money. I mean, and a big one, like you guys know, on the town side is the state funding.
Well, yeah, and we did ask our state rep, Margaret Storytown, and she did put in a bill, full funding of the regional school district. We absolutely need that.
Yeah.
But
there's more than just the full funding. Right now, there are regional district mandates that are not funded fully, like transportation.
Well, that's the one that I'm thinking.
Right, but just their normal funding isn't enough. Year to year, the portion of the Chapter 70 funds that we get from the state, they increase it by about 0.5%.
Right.
From year to year. So, and I believe we're at a point where 35 to 40% of our budget comes from the state.
Yeah.
And if their portion is only going up by 0.5%, that puts an undue burden on the towns, no matter what we come up with.
That is true. But if,
But transportation certainly would help, and funding those mandates would definitely help. It'd be really nice.
One,
yeah,
but I
exactly. I just want to say it would be fantastic. We can have a windfall from question one.
That would be wonderful. But my concern is that we won't have that for this year.
We're not counting on it right now.
We're February 7th, and that you guys are voting like March 6th. So what's that? 3 weeks away.
Right. And the March 6th budget, I can tell you, is most likely going to be higher than what we're going to come in at the town meeting. I don't know how much higher, but if you take a look at I've been on the school committee for 13 years. By March 6th, or that time frame when we have to vote a budget in to give to the towns so you can have on your warrants, we never have the information we need. And so as that information rolls in and we know exactly what we get the governor's numbers, and we'll usually base it on that, which isn't the best, but at least it's the number we can go by. We'll lower, if we got more revenue, we'll lower the assessments. If we can find ways to cut the budget, we'll do that and lower the assessments. It's a process that goes straight through OMA.
But
every year.
If we're going to do an override, we want the question on the April ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to go with what you give us at the beginning of March. We can't say, oh, but this is going to change. Or we wind up in the same situation that we were in last year, which is not positive.
I agree with
so
that.
What I'm looking for is a rollout of the override to the community, how we're going to do that, when we're going to do that, and what you guys are going to provide for it, because we will need the school committee to speak. Because we can keep our budget where we need to be to support the schools at 2.5%. But if the schools come in over 10%, it's just not doable unless we're shutting down town government.
And nobody wants that.
And that
it doesn't help anybody.
Right. I mean, shutting the senior center, closing town hall 1 day a week, cutting everybody's pay by 1/5.
Streetlights.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
We went through everything last year.
And there were things that we did have to cut that we would have liked to cut, but we can't and couldn't in order to fund the school. And I think everybody here wants, the schools to be successful and our children to be educated. However, there needs to be a plan for rolling it out. So we have a budget meeting planned for March 11th. For Saturday, I'm still on.
I mean, that Saturday budget meeting is still on.
It's still on. Okay, so we would need to roll out to the community immediately after that.
Okay, I can certainly go back to the school committee and the superintendent, and we can start talks on what that would look like.
That would be, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I would too. That's because just having this dialogue is making me much more comfortable that we're going to be moving forward with the same vision as opposed to, any adversarial roles. I'd rather be with somebody and going through the front lines than being by myself,
When we did have the last budget summit meeting, which was at the end of January, the superintendent did commit to coming down and having a presentation in the Great Hall for the town with the budget.
I mean, it's been a while since Townsend. Yeah, it's been a while since Townsend had an override. It's been well over 10 years. I want to say it was 2009, 2010 time frame, and the schools were very much involved in talking with the community and communicating with the community.
I think we need that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we do. I agree.
So but again, like a real concern, and I just want to make sure, like, you sell it this year. What are you going to do next year?
Yeah,
you gotta remember.
Oh yeah, the superintendent, in all of his budget talks, has been talking that he's looking out 2, 3, 4, 5 years, even trying to assess what's coming.
Well, so many times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's me, but I think that the schools need to keep in mind that the town also needs a percentage of the budget in order to run the town. And boy, would it be great if we could get a 10% increase. But we don't have that. So we have to stay within what we're not.
The assessment that Townsend may be 10%. The school as a whole is not getting 10%. Our budget's at 6%, and it goes back to 40% of our budget is going up by 0.5%. And if our budget goes up by 6%, then the remaining amount of money that we get is going to be over the 6% to come in and average out. So we're not getting a 10%.
I know, but
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's what I have. So we're going to be calling on you.
Absolutely.
And,
Look forward to
and
working.
Eric will
together.
probably be talking to Superintendent Morgan and to figure out how we're going to roll it. Because we need the override in order to comfortably fund the schools and the government.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the situation that we're in now, I think that the one thing I will say is that I think that the school's needs are such that we know there's going to be an override. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe last year we were kind of hemming and hawing and trying to get it close and trying to make it work. And at this point in time, I think we just need to realize that, like, the only way that it works is if there's an override. And so we need to put all of our efforts into doing our best to help the schools, help us to sell it. And it's going to have not just us, the town's going to vote yes, but if Pepperell and Ashby vote no, it doesn't matter. And so I think it's going to be a district-wide override. At least that would be my guess. My conversations with the Pepperell Town Administrator have indicated that they're in a similar situation to us. That number just it will just have to have an override, and that's it works if there's an override.
But I guess what I don't understand, what I was sort of looking at in the process, I really see that an override is going to be very difficult. I just see both all three towns having difficulties, especially if we look how the override went last time, and people thought that there was going to be much more support for the override than there was, and it was vehemently declined. With that being said, we hopefully will have better verbiage and we'll be able to support it more. But if it's decline in two towns, are we just going to say, good, our hands are washed, now you take care of it? Are we going to work together and you adjust your budget and come back and try to do a smaller override and things like that? Or are we just,
It's
you know
possible.
what I'm saying?
It's hard to,
how do you, what do you think is going to happen?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what the future holds.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, in my memory, is there was a year, I think there were overrides on the budget, but it wasn't passing in the town. Mm-hmm. And we actually went back, I want to say 3 times before we got a budget.
Yeah.
1992.
Yeah.
That was before my time, so that's not in my memory. It happened again. And I seem to remember having overrides that got passed on the first time around. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to kind of tell what the climate's going to be. Yeah. I know parents are usually, if we can get the message out to them, very supportive.
Yeah.
But again, these are strange times. So I can only hope that we get a message out and everybody understands and passes it. And if not, then we go back to the drawing board and we take a look at the budget and make a decision then on whether we want to bring back another override.
I do think we have the advantage now. It will be a little bit easier with the mail-in voting. I think that will help. Mm-hmm. For the parents. Sometimes it's.
I think what overrides all of this, no pun intended, is that we work together. I mean, that's the most important thing. We got to work together, and if the townspeople see that the school is working with the selectmen and working with the budgets, and I just think it'll be, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but we got to take our medicine, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And, as a citizen of this town myself, I'm not happy that the taxes would be going up. However, if it's going to be able to fund the town so that we can provide the services that we provide, we need to think of all of that, the plowing, the street lights, the band concerts, all of that stuff that we, the little things. I think it's something that we need to consider.
I think you mean.
And I think a key talking point,
Next year will be the last year, then it will be starting.
a key talking point too, we should always calculate what the override, when you give the big number, it always looks terrible, but when you give the number,
The actual amount.
the amount per year, it looks like, oh, for the kids, we can do that.
Good.
Yeah, that's definitely an important thing to get to the people to know exactly how it's going to impact them
I agree.
individually.
I agree.
All right.
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming in and talking with us.
So, with you guys. And keeping this momentum going forward after this year. Because we have really wanted to strive to, all three towns, to get a better working relationship.
Yeah, I think it's important. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to 4.2. Discuss the Highland Street parcel recommendation from town properties to transfer map lot 27560 to the Cemetery and Parks Department. This is off Highland Street. Approximately 18 acres for the Cemetery and Parks Department. So is there a motion?
1 second, Madam Chair.
Pardon me?
1 second.
1 second.
Oh, okay.
I can make a motion that we recommend that we take the Highland Street parcel from town properties and transfer it to cemeteries and park department.
The second thing.
Any further discussion?
Have we had discussions with cemetery and parks about what our intent was on this?
Have we?
Yeah.
The select board?
Well,
No.
we, the town, I guess I'm putting.
I thought town properties did.
I think they
And I
presented
think
it
the
to town
land use
properties.
coordinator, there's a letter from the land use coordinator
Yeah.
in support of former land use coordinator
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
In support of the transfer.
Yep. Okay.
This came before us, but it hadn't been looked at by town properties, I think, or some such thing. It went back to them.
Yeah, I was about to say it came here, but we didn't have the formal recommendation from them yet, I think. Was
Right.
the,
And so it
we
went back
do
to
have
them.
the formal recommendation and then,
Right here. Yeah.
introduce. Okay.
So
So
Roger Reposer from Cemetery and Parks is on Zoom if you have any questions.
Is the board of their property?
Roger, would you like to talk about this piece of property and what your plan is for that?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, are
Yeah.
you able to put a video on so that we can see you?
How's
There you
that?
All right, that's
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, this is a new thing that I have found is a trend coming to stop clearing of properties and losing trees for cemeteries. Cremations are becoming more and more needed and used in the industry today. And by doing so, we could turn that piece into a nice little walking path where people can go in and inter their loved one's ashes next to a tree or a rock or something like that, and not be too invasive about cutting trees down and clearing land.
So Roger, does this abut the cemetery at the
Yes.
on Highland?
Yeah, it's next to Avenue 9, but it has a wetland between it. It's designated wetland vernal pool, so we'd have to stay about 100 feet away from there. Access is between Lord and Oil and the Bradley household, and that's where it goes in. And I think there's at least 6 to 8 usable acres in there.
Okay.
So there'll be one road. There's a road that goes in and out now. It's just a teardrop road. We would just open that up so that we could get a hearse or a family car in there, and everything else would be walking past through there.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And would it just be for spreading of ashes, or could you bury urns and things like that?
Well, I've had soil samples and things done there, and of course, green barrels are becoming popular now. But I would say for right now, I would look at just doing ashes interments until we had more of a chance to do more investigation.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, folks.
There's a motion on the floor, so are we ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks,
Hey,
folks. Have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for your help.
You too. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Right. 4.3. This is to vote on joining Montechusett Area Regional Transit. Right now, the town, we've talked about this before in the meeting. We use Lowell Regional Transit for the senior center. We have the whole thing about the MBTA communities where we are adjacent to the Fitchburg line, not the Lowell line, but our transportation is in Lowell, which does not go to the Fitchburg line, it goes to the Lowell line. So we can join both. The letter from Bruno Fisher from MRTA, Montechusett Regional Transportation Association, is in the packet. And in order to join MART, what is required is a vote of the Board of Selectmen and then a letter to them that says we voted to join an additional transit authority, specifically one. And that's all we need here. An added piece is we formed the transportation subcommittee, our transportation task force a few meetings ago, and we've been meeting to discuss transportation in Townsend and the need for it. Our hope is to get a park and ride coming that will go twice in the morning and twice in the late afternoon evening to the Fitchburg Intermodal Center, where you can pick up a train or a bus or just walk around Fitchburg if you want. But transportation to Fitchburg, and our thought right now is to use a minibus that is able to put bikes on the back, and it would come up 13, the lot behind town hall. Half of it would be our parking area eventually, with a
Bus shelter.
A bus shelter, yes. In it, with parking spaces behind the bus shelter right on Duck Street, and that would be the pickup and drop off, with additional parking at the Jeff Street lot, and temporarily use the lot right here behind town hall for the pickups and drop off until we can get funds to develop something a little more permanent for that. So in order to get that going, and we have met with George Kahali from March and with Brad Harris from MRTC. In order to get that going, we need to join March, say that we're interested. There is no cost for saying you want to join. Where the cost comes in is when we tell them what kind of service there is. We want to talk more about this, Eric?
Sure. No, the idea was, as the chair mentioned, to have 2 runs of buses back and forth. They charge by the hour for driver. The kind of approximate cost for that service, just based on very back of the napkin kind of estimates that we did at the time of the meeting, would be something around $40,000 for the 4 runs
For the year.
for the year. We are, MART authorizes us to charge the riders. If we do charge riders for the service, that comes off of the town's bill. I think, you know, the recommendation would be for us to run it for free to see how that works and possibly identify maybe some ARPA funds to prime that pump for a year to see what that year looks like and what kind of ridership we get for that. But it would give a direct, you know, transit link between town center and, you know, downtown Fitchburg, where, you know, Fitchburg State is, and the intermodal train into Boston is.
So that's the intermodal. So that would be the commuter rail, and it would also connect to their busing.
Yeah. The center right there in the middle of town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where you pick up.
Right.
That's center.
That center.
Yeah.
The other thing is it would run on the weekends. We don't have anything set up yet. We would have to have further discussion. The first step is to send them this letter saying that we voted to join them, because until we join them, nothing is possible. Through March.
And we're going to be putting out a Survey Monkey on the town's website. We're going to be broadcasting to everybody about what folks in town's interest is in having that sort of connection. Again, it would, you know, even if you like got a small pool of regular ridership, I think it would end up being definitely worth it, because you're providing the ability for someone to actually commute from downtown Townsend into as far as Boston, and then this is where they're coming back to. So hopefully it can create some.
Well, I see other opportunities as well, because there are some fares that are paid by smaller agencies for individuals that need to get into Fitchburg for doctor's appointments and that kind of stuff, that there is no transportation. So I think it goes beyond just getting on the commuter rail and going to Boston.
Sure.
I know as part of the governor's council on overdose prevention, Townsend is one of those towns that's so unique because we don't have transportation. So if we have individuals that need to get to doctor's appointments, there is nothing. We don't have a taxi. We don't have anything. So this then would provide local agencies to be able to give them, you know, ridership to get from here into Fitchburg to get the services that they need. So I think that's really important. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. This says there would not be any financial obligations incurred by just joining MART.
That's correct.
I understand that. Is there a time thing if we do join?
They have an advisory board meeting. We need to be accepted by the advisory board, and there's an advisory board
At the end of February.
At the end of February. Mm-hmm. So
no, I'm saying if we join them and then let's say a year and a half down the road, we say this isn't worthwhile and we want to duck out, are we going to get?
Joining them, we're part of it. Then we decide as a town what type of service we want.
Yeah.
And at what level. And if we don't have service, well, we're still a member. If we would decide that it wasn't going to work, we're still a member, but we just wouldn't be paying the fee. We wouldn't be having, there's no, well, you have to pay, you know, $500,000 a year.
Like a cell phone contract.
No.
The interesting thing that they told us right now is they actually happen to have a bunch of the bus shelters on order. And so if we join now, they got a grant for these bus shelters, and they're about $15,000 a piece.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. So if we got in line and told them we needed a bus shelter, right now we might be able to just get in line for one that they already have a grant for. And that would reduce the cost of having to, you know, set up the back lot as a bus stop.
I mean, it would.
Well, the
550,
intermodal is also a connector, not only for the commuter rail, but the buses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Within the state, and there's a lot
There's a lot there.
that runs out, well, that's what an intermodal is.
And that's what.
Multiple modes there.
Chose that instead of going to air.
Yeah.
Or going,
Yeah.
early to the train station.
Yeah.
Because there's more opportunity. You could go to Fitchburg State. You could take the bus down in the morning, walk to your classes,
Mhm.
take the bus back here in the evening. Because it's right there. In walking distance for the college. So it just makes sense.
Come in, have breakfast at Clubs, get on the bus.
And then also, if we have the bike racks on back, people could come, bring their bikes, ride the trail, visit Townsend, go back home. Perfect. So, but we do need to, it's the first part of this. I've highlighted the specific citation which indicates the process for joining an additional transit authority, which only requires a vote by the Board of Selectmen of the community and acceptance by the MART Advisory Board. If the Select Board of Townsend votes to approve for the community to join MART, the chairperson of the BOS would send a letter indicating such to my attention, and I would bring this to the MART Advisory Board at our next scheduled meeting. I asked this in around April of last year. So he had given me the dates for that, but we weren't quite ready to just jump in there and do that until we met as an advisory board and thought about what we were going to be doing, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're bringing this now, and all we need is that letter signed by me.
Well,
this is
part of our punch list that we've been working on. This is the transportation portion. So
So this is the first part of that.
Yeah.
So, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we take a vote to join MART for the purpose of having a bus from Townsend to the Fitchburg Intermodal Center. And additionally, for the Board of Selectmen chair to send a letter to MART with the board's request to join.
Second.
All right, any further discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. We.
Thank you. All right, so we'll get that letter out through Bruno Fisher and go from there. All right, the next one is to consider the request to form a town committee to raise funds for maintenance of kids' country playgrounds. And I'm assuming that's why you guys are here. So do you want to come up and talk with us?
Hi, Karen. We only see each other when we're all dressed up, right? It's true. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that did get some.
Playground is over 20 years old at this point, and most playgrounds, unfortunately, these new metal ones last between 20 and 25 years. It's not like the old-fashioned ones that lasted for 100 years. We have some money in a donation account through the Parks and Cemetery Department, but even with the funding that's in there right now from donations, it barely will cover repairs. It's still structurally sound, but there's things that need to be done. Roger just ordered an entire swing because that broke. He ended up digging out the two bouncy horses because they had seen their day, their plastic was cracking. So it's kind of an ambitious plan, but we're looking at about $100,000 right now today to do a handicapped accessible playground. But maybe more than 100,000 handicapped accessible. So my goal would be 20,000 a year to raise, and 5 years down the road to actually have a new playground installed. That's an ambitious goal. 20,000, dollars a year is a lot to raise. we have hopes that the open space and rec plan will come through in the spring and go through the state as the plan, comes, because then we would be able to.
Parks are it.
Yeah.
So what we're asking is to actually be a town committee, or I don't want to be on committee, but asking for a 3-member committee with staggered dates, a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year. And obviously they would all be, renewed 1 year, 2 year, 3 year if people want to run again. And if not, other people would obviously have to take their places. By a town committee, basically insurance wise, we've been doing all this fundraising over the years for the playground without any kind of insurance. So that's the big thing nowadays, is just kind of, covering yourself for anything that we would do. So that's the biggest thing. Also, if we had to make copies of anything, we'd have access to a copying machine, and pretty much sites and for advertising purposes. So those are the 3 reasons why we'd like to establish a town committee.
So Eric, I'm going to go to you on this. So what do we need to do to establish a town committee? I mean, one that's official, not just a task force for short term like our transportation group, but a real thing. You're thinking about like the meeting hall committee or the flag committee, or?
Right. All we did with the flag committee, I think we came in front of the select board and requested such.
Yeah, I can certainly check to see if there's something that more formal needs to happen other than a vote of the Board of Selectmen. You could take a vote tonight to establish a kids country playground committee, and or take any steps in furtherance of establishing that committee if some other steps need to be taken, which would be obviously putting on a bylaw. I mean,
right.
would be
That's what I'm
Or
just
does it
bringing
need to be
I don't think it needs.
the town meeting?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
In my time on the board, we have never established a real committee. I mean, we've had these little task
We have fake committees for no reason.
Yeah. Right. They've been short-lived. This is not short-lived.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure if that's necessary, but I think you could take a vote tonight if the board so chose that would either establish it or start the process of establishing it if a bylaw was necessary.
Yeah, I'm
Okay. So that too, because that playground, it's our playground and it needs to be maintained. So, and we don't have a budget for it. So we got this wonderful budget playground, but nobody ever thought about maintaining it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So is there a motion to?
Well, I think the motion should be the motion to establish a kids country playground committee. And if necessary, proceed with any other requirements to formalize that establishment if necessary.
So moved.
Right.
So could you put in 3-member committee, because we want to be specific.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
staggered renewal dates.
Yeah, through a 3-member committee with staggered renewal dates of 1, 2, and 3 years.
Okay.
Appointed by the Board of
There's
Selectmen.
Second?
No,
I can't.
Wow. Double duty tonight. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
All right. So all those in favor, any
No
further
discussion.
discussion before we vote?
Yeah, I just, when we look at establishing this committee, which is not perfect, I just want to make sure we're very, have it clear in the committee, how they, raise funds and how they maintain the funds. And more importantly, how how they get assistance if they don't know, because I know there's a lot of grants programs available for playgrounds and whatever, so that they have the access either to the town or whatever to apply for grants.
This is where the town policy and procedures would take place as being part of the town. You would then be able to take advantage of whatever the policies and procedures are of the town that would cover what you're talking about.
Great. Yeah, so we refer to those. Great, thank you.
Laurie, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. Just a little bit of history on the playground. Way back when, it was the Townsend Business Association that donated most of the equipment. And they did donate every year for many years. And apparently that stopped maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So I don't know if Karen remembers that, but I'm sure that if you reached out to I don't know what the TBA is doing, but businesses would help.
Procedural that once we establish the committee, they choose to do that, they may, but I wouldn't. I think the motion on the floor is to establish the committee, and
thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. I suppose that's one form of funding that you could investigate once the committee is in place.
Stone, the last one, so what the team did.
I don't either.
Something to investigate.
Right. Right. Something to investigate
when I worked for Lowell, we got a park grant to put a fully accessible playground in Centerville over in Lowell. It's phenomenal. I don't know if you've got.
Yeah, been looking at the fully accessible playground.
So if you need anything about it, I can get you all the specs and all the design stuff because I was working on it. It was very expensive, but it was very cool because it's got all the sort of autistic kids and like the whole the board, the message board, so you can nonverbal folks. It's amazing.
Thank you. You want to contact us? We need to take a vote.
Yeah.
All right. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimous. So we'll go forward with that.
Thank you.
And
I'll report back at the next meeting whether there's something else that needs to happen.
Okay, that would be good. And then we can
and if it needs to be a bylaw, there needs to be a bylaw, and we'll.
And
all right, so
if there's nothing, then at the next meeting, can we appoint the 3 members?
Yeah,
we
will discuss and appoint.
Yeah, well, I think we have to be careful. Well, so I'll try to find out what we need to do as quickly as possible because either way we have to post.
Right.
We can't post until the committee's created.
Yeah.
So if you created it just now, we'll be able to post before the next meeting. But if we have to do something else to create it, we're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
I know.
We're getting there.
We'll try to cut through it.
All right.
So keep your fingers crossed. 5 years from now, we'll be breaking.
All right. All right, moving on to 4.5, mandatory referral from the CBA for the accessory apartment at 5 Ryan Road. This was in the packet. And we just need our comment on this. So is there any comments to add, or are we going no comments?
I think that I'd like to thank the ZBA for their input. I'd like to thank the applicant for thinking of an affordable apartment, accessory apartment. And it looks like they're doing everything that they need to. So I would just say that I personally think that we should just thank the boards that we're working on and then
Well, they haven't heard it yet. This is our referral to them.
Right.
We can just.
Yeah, but we trust their opinion.
So should we say, we encourage affordable, accessory apartments in town?
Mm-hmm.
Does that work, Teresa, or do you have?
Yeah, I refer to their, judgment and I support
Okay.
accessory. Affordable also.
I'm saying we support affordable accessory apartments in Townsend. And,
Refer to the expertise of the zoning board of review. Mm-hmm.
and defer to the expertise of the CBA. Today's date is, need to be signed by all of us. I've never done them. There we go. All right.
No, just one person.
Just one person.
Just one person.
6.4, discuss funding affordable housing in Townsend with the placement of the Community Preservation Act vote on the annual town meeting warrant.
4.6.
Oh, did I say 4.7?
No, you said 6.4.
I'm reading backwards yet again. All right, so this is something that's come up with the Affordable Housing Trust. We would like to see the CPA on the Community Preservation Act on the town warrant. And we are planning to put together a presentation for it. And this is just to let you guys know that presentation day will be sometime in March or April. So we're looking at the amount that the town has paid at the registry, because every registry transaction, a certain percentage of it goes to the CPA. So if you were to sell your house or purchase a home or file an order of condition, some percent of the fee that is paid goes to the CPA fund for the state. Because town is not a member of the Community Preservation Act, because we have not passed that act, those funds don't come back to Townsend. They go to all the other towns in the state that have signed on to the Community Preservation Act.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been since the beginning of, but at least 20 years. So,
Yeah, it was
roughly 20
early
years
2000s.
ago.
Yeah.
So Townsend has been losing out on the funds. So those funds are combined with additional funds from the state and distributed proportionally to the towns that are have signed on for this. So it would be wonderful if Townsend was able to have the benefit of those funds. So we're thinking of drafting for the warrant. So we would like the support of the Board of Selectmen in so doing that. So,
Cool. Can I add my 2 cents worth in, Madam Chair? I just want to throw that out, that this was something that is in the housing production plan, that we wanted to move forward with this, that we thought that was in the best benefit of everybody involved in it. So I personally 100% support this. We need to be able to, historically the town may or may not have planned certain things, but the follow through has been not too great. So this is one of those things that we have planned for. It has been discussed in many boards and committees, and I think we should follow through with that. Yeah.
I'll just add that it used to be when this act was first brought about, it was for open space and historical preservation. More recently, affordable housing has been added to.
Mhm.
So that gives it added benefits. Teresa, any comments?
So the vote on the annual town warrant is for funding?
There is a funding component.
Okay.
Because when a town votes to become part of the community preservation, when it adopts the Community Preservation Act, there is and the town can decide there are parameters.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fee that is charged to all people who pay property taxes.
So the vote in front of the town meeting would actually be to put it on the ballot.
Right.
So it has to be on a statewide ballot. So that would be
September.
Yeah, not the primary. It would have to be on a full. I don't know is November. Yeah, November's a statewide ballot. So it has to be on a statewide ballot, and it's a ballot question that the town would have to vote on, and the ballot question would have to pass for it to be adopted.
So we'd have to have a town meeting and a ballot question.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to have both.
And what's the cost to the town?
You are allowed to set up the Community Preservation Act at 3 different levels, either 1%, 2%, or 3%. And so that's a kind of addition onto the tax bill.
And it's the percentages of your tax bill, not
right.
And there's also the option to subtract, or say, okay, so it's not on the first 100,000, for example.
There are exceptions.
There are exceptions.
There are exceptions for elderly. There's exceptions for the first 100,000 of your residential. What that meant. I think there's a couple of other exceptions too that you're allowed to put on the question, the exceptions that you want. So, for instance, on a $5,000 tax bill, a 1% would be $50.
Right. But yeah, so if it was,
so it's and that would go into the town's portion of the Community Preservation Act funds, and then every year the state matches what the town has collected with state funds. So you can turn around and spend more money than you've collected on projects that the town special committee chooses.
Right, and those projects are historic preservation, affordable housing, and what was the last one?
Open space and recreation.
So those 3, which have
playground,
right, which would fund a playground, yes, or help fund a playground. But these are 3 areas that this town has struggled to be able to help out with. This provides an opportunity for that to be number 1 looked at, but number 2, getting state funding to match what we put in there. I think it's a win-win situation. Also with this, does this not put us into I can't think of the name of it, but preferred if we have a CPA preferred grant fund, what is I can't think of the name of that.
it gives you a couple more points.
Yes.
On things when you're being evaluated for.
Right. Yes. In certain grants, I don't know specific ones. In certain grants to ask if you're a CPA.
Correct. So I mean that's another thing too. And also it will assist not only the Affordable Housing Trust, but the Housing Authority, but in general, just in town, to be able to have the ability to do this without really.
And when do we make decisions on the 1, 2, or 3? What exclusions what you know,
That will be in the warrant article
but when do we,
in March. We have a meeting, the Housing Trust has the meeting at the end of the month, 2/27.
so a recommendation? will come
We
from-
have a joint meeting with the Housing Authority on March 14th. So we talked about opening and closing the warrant, mid-March, mid-April or so. I can't remember exactly what button. Yeah, I can't. And so it
So
would go on.
I think the answer to what you're saying is, it's ultimately decided when the Board of Selectmen votes on that warrant article.
Correct.
You guys can
That's
change it.
correct.
Right, but the recommendation that, the recommendations on the exceptions and the 1, 2, or 3 and the, you know, what percentage and, what exceptions we're gonna allow, but maybe exceptions for age and this and whatever that you just spoke of, that's going to be presented to the board by the Housing Trust?
Well, it's gonna be the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I know we
Not,
ultimately make the
and we will
decision,
make the ultimate,
but
but the joint,
The
board.
boards would recommend, and then we would decide what we would.
and we're making that for the March warrant, and then it has to be on the September ballot.
Correct.
Or the November, whichever.
November, it'd have to be on November full
Right.
ballot.
So it would be both put it on a ballot and then ballot.
And if it doesn't pass in March, then it moves.
If
May.
it doesn't pass
in May.
in May.
May.
It wouldn't go on the ballot.
But we have to have the warrant by March. Okay, thank you.
So that's all. That was just All right. ARPA projects, moving on to 5 for now. I just thought that it would be a good time to start looking at the ARPA projects. We usually do right around the start of the fiscal year, but I thought it would be good to look at where we are with everything. Where we stand. And part of this came up because of the COVID cleaning that we've been, and the fact that FEMA funds dropped off at the end of December. FEMA had been funding at 90% the meals for seniors and the cleaning, disinfecting of public buildings. Remember that they had been fully funding up until the end of June, I think it was, or maybe it was through the end of August, and then they did 90%.
Yeah, sometime in the fall, they switched over to.
So slowly, all of these things are dropping off as we move further and further out of a pandemic situation. So we need to consider the COVID cleaner. That was the question that came from accounting, and that's kind of what prompted this to be put on the agenda. So what you have here is the ledgers for 2022 and 2023, both for FEMA and ARPA. And there's a lot here. So if we want to talk about this more in general at our next meeting, we can. This is on every meeting, and I know I just gave you these today because we just got them. So you might want to take some time to look at that. But the one that is really kind of informative is this one, the Excel spreadsheet with what I put in last night was November, because that was all I had. But I added one today that in the, I put 2/7/2023 on it in SharePoint. And it's the one where I wrote, you'll see me, what I gave you, probably towards the text of what I gave you. Does everybody see that? I'll wait for you guys. Yeah, that one. And I wrote, so.
The last 2 pages.
Yeah, those are the ones that are probably that and the ARPA project stuff. What Jennifer did for us.
Yes.
Okay, so that hasn't changed. So looking at, does everybody have the PDF of the XLS that Lori did? Do you have this one?
This one,
No, your right elbow.
this one.
No, you didn't get it from me. Okay, so let me see what you have there. No, the other one. And hand that to me. I'm gonna put something. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one that is most recent. And it says of 2,841,288. Okay, so now you have it. All right. All right, so
Who invited you?
if you look at the first is the project name, our ARPA numbers are what is used for reporting to the federal government by CSF. CSF does all our reporting.
Yeah.
The project names, none of those have changed. Those are the project names that were set up for Townsend by CSF. The next is the amount allocated. That's what we voted on for each of these projects. And if you look at the bottom, it was 2,834,314 has been allocated out of $2,841,288 that the town received.
So we need to allocate that last $7,000, right?
We do, but we can
At some point in time.
we at the end of the fiscal year when we look at what we've spent and move things around a little bit. Everything has to be allocated by December of 2024, unless they've changed it.
Okay.
And spent by December of 2026.
Okay.
Of that, I am certain. However, the federal government changes things all the time. So we can look that up.
Question?
Yes.
Can these project names have to be specific projects? Or would we be able to have, for instance, if we had the Benton Pond that was already paid and there's additional money there, can that money go into an account for like auxiliary or however we
So at the end of the fiscal year, when we look at what we spent, because know that this is federal money. So if we spend more than, I think it's 750,000
federal money per year.
Federal money per year. And remember the CDBG that we just closed out in this fiscal year gets added into this
we
as
gotta
well.
Be careful of that, yeah.
And we can use ARPA funds to pay for the audit. Because it's an additional charge over and above what we contracted with Rosella.
And if I remember correctly, we didn't have funds for that particular audit.
That was for last year,
right?
Because that wasn't
ARPA funds.
It was not ARPA funds.
It was for FY21.
Correct, because we didn't expect that audit.
It was money.
Not because of ARPA, it was because of CDBG.
Right. Yeah. Can we allocate funds just in case that happens again?
It will all be part of this, and it's allocated under ARPA reporting.
Yeah, ARPA 05.
Okay. ARPA 05 is where that money would come from. If it's because what would kick it over this year is the ARPA expenditures.
Exactly.
And if we do it right, we will spend close to that.
Yeah. We're going to try to spend 749,000.
And the generators for water and et cetera, et cetera. We are going to. So in any event, that's part of that 100,000 for ARPA reporting, of which we've only spent 8,769.
Yeah. By the way, we're probably not going to spend the ARPA money for the bridge this fiscal year.
Okay.
Because that's going to be the last money we're going to spend. So we'll probably spend it next fiscal
year. But anyway, so if you look at this is where we are. A few things that online permitting. I thought that the printer for the building department was part of that money. I don't know where I expected to see. I know the printer came in.
It's on a lease.
It's $80.
It's on a lease. So when we get lease payments, as we have to pay the lease, we'll have to put the lease payments through here.
Okay. And we were supposed to also purchase, kiosks so that people could come into town hall and,
That's still on the, to be set up.
okay, all right, just so it's not forgotten. The Affordable Housing Trust money has been moved to Unibank for the certificate of trust at a 2% interest rate. And those funds will be spent through the treasurer by the trust. We now know how to do that, so there's progress. The Harbor Sidewalk Bike Trail, we put aside 50K. That we put in for matching funds for the Mass Trails grant,
yeah.
which I think I gave you guys. Did I give you? You should have the last page of what I gave you was Mass Trail.
Yep.
Just so you would know what we asked for. Eric submitted it last week, Monday. I think the 30th or something.
Whenever it was, we did
it's
it.
already submitted,
We
and
submitted it.
we'll find out in June whether that was successful or not. So, and the 50,000 from ARPA, well, the ARPA funds were part of the match for that. So the Economic TEO walk-in fridge, we have not yet received that. They requested it, but they have not yet done the paperwork to purchase. Broadband and Wi-Fi, the water treatment engineering, generators at Cross Street, not yet fully spent. Stormwater management, this is to clean all the storm drains. And to do the public education that's required by our state stormwater management plan that the town has, that we had to file with the state. So it was to clean the storm drains and I don't know what else.
It was,
for 4 years.
yeah, they're supposed to have like a public forum or whatever.
Every year.
Every year.
Who asked for that?
Conservation and
Okay.
highway.
Yeah.
And if you go under, on the website, under town projects, and you click appropriately, you'll come to the words that were used for that. Okay. Election expenses, the 6,300 was spent for the poll pads and for annual maintenance for 1 year for the poll pads to see how it worked. The other 12K was to buy clickers for town meeting. Those have never been purchased. So if there are other things that need to be put in place there, you know, that needs to be, the policy requires them to
come in and say
what they want. All right, Vinton Comcast filled out. This is what Chaz was talking about. We have 985 left. That can be subsumed back into the money that,
right.
But it has to be given up by, I don't know, I guess us.
I was about to say, that's the Board of Selectmen.
So we'll have to do the paperwork.
I mean, I think technically this is all the Board of Selectmen, you know, with the exception of TEO, which is an outside,
that was a third party.
Third party.
Yeah.
All the rest of this is you know, town entities that Board of Selectmen only has control over.
Under the wellness programming, that North Middlesex Cares did get funds from us, and they did the work that was with the policy, you know, so that's all. Other COVID-related expenses. All right, I noticed that there were disinfectants and things that were being purchased, if you look through here, being purchased with FEMA funds. Those should now go under other COVID-related expenses, which is ARPA 15. If in fact it is for COVID cleaning, that's what I thought it was for.
Yeah, that's what those are for.
So because with ARPA 19, we didn't fund cleaning agents. We only funded salary.
Yeah.
Okay. And the salary was, I did this with Jennifer from CSF. We took that number that was in the budget for COVID cleaning We rounded it up to 18K. We did the math to say that FEMA was going to pay the 8,100 through the end of December, and the town would pick up the remainder for the fiscal year. Now, what we need to discuss is the pandemic ends on May 11th, if
Officially.
I understand things correctly from the federal government. That's when the pandemic officially ends.
Right.
So do we fund the COVID cleaning through the end of the fiscal year, which we did budget? And then that's that? Or is there a benefit for keeping it going? We don't really have ARPA funds to do that at this point.
Unless it's under other.
Unless we want to do it under this other COVID-related expenses, which was if we needed to buy test kits to distribute, if we were going to pay for testing, if we, there were unknowns.
PPE, there were
PPE.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're reaching a point now where it feels like most people, not all, but most people are treating it as well, and yeah, they're operating at, if not pre-COVID levels, pretty much close to how they were operating at pre-COVID levels. So, it's funded through the end of the fiscal year. I think absent some change between now and the end of the fiscal year, I think we just say, and that's when it ends. That's when that funding ends, and so we're not going to keep doing it unless there's some change. That would be my.
I agree with that.
Okay. So we need to.
We'll let facilities know that's how that's going to work.
Yeah. Okay, but it is funded, so that is a good thing.
Okay.
Meals for seniors, we funded that for the whole time period. There have been a couple changes, especially in that line because FEMA covered a lot. We redirected some funds for the assistant director. For that, we also, I can't remember the exact thing, but we purchased the refrigerator, which might have come from a different grant eventually, so we had funds need that.
Right, correct.
So anyway, so that's still in there. The Greenville Road Bridge improvement, the public safety related expenses, that's what the PS is. And there were certain items for both and salaries for both fire and police that were coming out of this line.
As of yet, they haven't had to tap into the salary portion of that.
Not yet, yeah. So that's good.
I mean, I'm assuming I have to talk to them about how much they're expecting to spend of that, if any, this fiscal year. And then we'll look at the rest of it for next fiscal year. I'm assuming because especially police is they're up to full.
The conservation agent wages, this is restoration of hours from pre-COVID level. It used to be 19, we had offered 15, and now this is the extra 4 hours for the longevity of the ARPA fund expenditure. And then the assistant director wages, that was for this fiscal year, but it doesn't look like we've taken any money out of it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Lauren about it. It may be that she's using up the salary line that she has and stay away first, and then saving this for then.
Yeah, I haven't looked through these in detail. I skimmed them. The ledgers from the accountant that came in this afternoon.
Yeah, I do think she's doing it just like the police and fire are, which is she's got a salary line that's with general fund money that she's spending first.
Okay.
So where are we with the online permitting? Because I thought that was going to be further along at this time.
Yeah. So the contract, I think I told you about the whole rigmarole between the contract, and so that got all signed. My understanding is that the payments can now be taken online, and so I believe now they're looking at getting the kiosks so that they can help the folks.
Okay, because I've been approached for an individual that needed an electrical permit for on a Friday. Building department is closed on a Friday. They heard about online permitting and they weren't able to pull a permit on a Friday, which they could schedule how the schedules are for all of that kind of stuff. So, it was, we said we were doing the online permitting, and when the individual was looking for the permitting, it wasn't there.
Yeah,
So,
I'll double check. I also am not sure if there's been the communication to make sure that it's appropriately like flashing on the front page of the website. Because we can't hide it buried. It needs to be up front on the website. So I'll double check with Eric that building and check where that is and let folks know next meeting.
That's pretty much what I have for our vote.
I think we're doing pretty good with it.
Well, we are. I think we are. We have spent $422,743 of what we would do. And a lot of these things were budgeted out for all 4 years.
Yeah.
4 plus.
And this was a lot of work to put it all together too. So
so it's rolling along.
Yeah.
But needs to be reviewed every year. So we can talk more. I'll leave it on the agenda for next time if you guys want to look through that.
So when do you suggest we should be revisiting this next, like in more detail?
In July.
In July?
After we close the fiscal year, we know exactly what we spent last year.
Right.
I think it's a good time for us to look and see if there are those loose things that need to be reallocated into another fund or close out
first meeting in July.
Yeah, write that down. Community wellness coordinator, community services coordinator, she will be bringing in July what she's planned for going forward, just like she did last
year. Yeah, for FY24.
Yeah.
She's doing a great job
too. She is doing a great job. I can't tell you how many positive I've heard from people in the community saying she's really helped.
I think so too.
Great.
Sustainability is our next goal.
Yes. We'll look at that. So that's all I have for there. So where's Eric?
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, you're next. Town administrator updates and reports.
Okay, so I think most of the members of the Board of Selectmen know, but just to let you know, the Shirley, who was the director of TEMA, has resigned as the director of TEMA as of a couple of weeks ago. I believe we got the resignation
at our last meeting.
And we wish her well. She did, I think, a great job for a person who was really enthused about that sort of work and worked really hard to make TEMA, work as well as it could. At this point in time, I've had a meeting with both Brian Kennedy, who is the deputy director of TEMA, and the fire chief, Chief Shepherd, about restructuring the TEMA oversight. And so the proposal that the three of us talked about and thought was the best working proposal that I would present to the Board of Selectmen would be that the TEMA director would report directly to the fire chief. And so that TEMA would no longer be a separate entity, but it would be an entity under the fire department. I will be blunt, that's the way it is. The emergency management has been operated in every municipality I'm aware of. The fire chief basically had direct oversight. Because fire is the first responder at every emergency. It makes sense from a hierarchy standpoint to have the fire chief be in charge of emergency management and how that rolls out. The fire chief has talked with Brian. Brian thinks that makes sense because the remaining members of TEMA are volunteers who have full-time jobs, like they're including Brian himself, who has a full-time job, and having someone be in charge of kind of overall coordination, who is full-time, works for the town, and is in the fire department, makes the most sense, we think.
Can I ask specific questions? TEMA, is that a separate budget item?
Yeah.
TEMA has a
Does that be
separate
rolled into the fire
line item. I think it would be rolled into a separate line under fire.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so they would still maintain a separate line for things that TEMA needs to do. So, for instance, when we have an emergency in town, MEMA reaches out to the fire chief.
Yeah.
And so, not the TEMA director, historically speaking. So, to have those entities kind of meshed, I think makes the most sense.
Well, I've always wondered why it was separate, but that makes sense because there's extemporaneous equipment that TEMA historically has asked for that now they can be resourcing through the fire department, which makes complete sense.
Yeah,
because they have the resources and the availability of some of the equipment already.
And so to be open and transparent, I've authorized the fire chief to use TEMA equipment, over the last several months, when there are emergencies and non-equipment necessary, be it generators or lighting, things like that. Yeah, so that's an authorization that I gave to the fire chief. So that's the way we have been operating for the last few months. I think just formalizing it is something that I would propose to the board. And if the board is acceptable, I'll take a look at what we need to do to make that happen, whether that's a bylaw or which I think it is. We'd probably have to put a bylaw on the annual town meeting
to change. So the what are we looking to do? We're looking to do two things. Number one is to see if we can do it and what the procedure is to be able to do that. Number one. Number two is this reorganization would still need to have a TEMA director, correct? Or a TEMA, however we want to call that position.
Yeah. So so the idea would be like any other fire department position that the fire chief would make a determination as to who that person would best be, and then bring it to the Board of Selectmen for an appointment.
I like that idea.
And I think there's I think that the fire chief has one or more internal candidates that he thinks would be good. It'd be a good kind of time for them career-wise to move into that sort of role. Who have experience with the fire department, and so will be able to. It would be a much more seamless kind of.
That's the resourcing I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's much more. The knowledge base is broader, and
so I'm going to look at the TEMA director's job description. That will likely need to be tweaked. Just say who they report to and how they're. We'll bring that to the board for review. Mm-hmm. Once that job description is changed so that it reports to the fire chief, even before TEMA itself goes into the fire department, if the TEMA director reports to the fire chief, we would be able to, by changing the job description, have the chief make a determination as to who he would like to appoint and bring that person, that appointment request to the Board of Selectmen. And then we could formally move TEMA under the fire department as part of a bylaw. But I think functionally, once we make that job description change, it would actually happen anyway. The fire chief is supervising the director.
I think I like that idea.
So do we need a motion for that, or can we just?
I don't think we need a motion. This is just kind of a report of progress, and I will come back with, unless there's a concern from the board that they feel like I need to address beforehand.
I have no concern. Rachel, what about you?
Okay, then I'll just kind of proceed down this road and work on those two. If there's a bylaw change, and then a job description review.
So I have a couple questions for you on RFP.
Yes.
Shared streets and for the building.
Yeah, so those still need to be sent out.
Okay.
So the RFP for shared streets is for the bike lanes over in Temple Park.
Yeah.
And we have all the documentation from the engineering firm that worked with us to.
Can we work together to order the signage from Masscore? I've already sat down and I've kind of itemized what we need.
Yeah, so we can do that.
Let's order it from Masscore, just like we did.
Absolutely.
No bid.
Yeah, there's state contract. You don't have to do anything. Okay, so that makes total sense. So I started to do the RFP for the buildings. I think so I guess the one thing that I kind of run into is I think before the RFP, we as a town need to decide kind of what is at least the general use we're going to request for those buildings. Because an RFP for someone to do residential in a building is a very different question than an RFP for someone to do a museum or set it up for a museum or some other display space or a commercial space. Is there going to be a kitchen? I think we need to, we probably need to tighten up what we're looking for.
Okay.
Before we can put that out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Because the three reasons I was thinking about that are commercial kitchen. If we want something that has a commercial kitchen, that's a very specific ask. If we want something that serves food, we need to have a commercial kitchen, and that's a very specific and expensive ask. Mm-hmm. So we just need to put that in the RFP if that's what we want for a space. Mm-hmm. If we want something, and I feel like by the end, we were probably steering away from residential at any of these sites.
I think
it felt like generally, except for maybe a mixed use.
I didn't think residential was any of the not of the buildings that we were talking about.
Yeah. So that's not but that comes with, and they all come with, but residential especially, Title V. And septic issues. And so that's saying so you want to set up a building for a residential use is very different than saying you want to set it up for, like I said, a display space use or something like that.
Although there may be septic involved if you're doing office space or a kitchen area, you know, you want to have a coffee shop or,
some sort of cafe or something like
that. Space for a cafe.
So it felt like from the general comments, the building that got the most push for this should be a museum was the old Harbor Fire Station. Felt like that was the one that kind of the highest percentage of folks who thought that should be some sort of.
Provided the museum has a cafe.
Well, the Harbor Fire Station, that would be hard.
Seeing that comment in there, Madam Chair.
That would be hard. A marijuana cafe. Wasn't that the comment?
Yes, it was.
So that the challenge at the Harbor Fire Station would be parking for a cafe, because
I'm thinking of the bike trail.
It's on a very small lot of land.
Oh, the harbor.
The Harbor Fire Station.
I'm thinking Elm Street.
So the other fire station was different, but at the Harbor Fire Station,
it was museum.
And I looking at that land, the lack of parking, it feels like it should be something that integrates with the rest of those buildings.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it as a whole, and I think a museum works with a historic society building
Mhm.
kind of functionally in that area. That's the feel that I always got from it.
I agree. Okay, so you need to be able to narrow it down. So,
And so we can narrow it down. You guys can just tell me what to do, or I can give some ideas. And you know, I mean, I think that, you know, I for the first time I was in the library last week.
Did you go alone?
I didn't. I didn't. No. And then in hindsight, I'm very glad I didn't. It's a little bit creepy.
That's what I'm saying. It is really good.
No, we were walking around there with Al Futterman and the other folks from the Natural River Watershed Association. So, I'm being in that space, you know.
here's what,
I can see a lot of different potential uses for it. I do think the residential is not one of them. But, you know, having that as a you know, kind of an art gallery and with workspace in it, to me, I think because of those high ceilings and all the windows, I think would be really interesting. They, you know, the Watershed Association thinks would be interesting as kind of office and educational space.
so I think for purposes of the RFP, because we aren't going to know who's going in there
Right.
at the point that we do that, we're going to be writing a lease for that.
Right.
I think it's to make it so that it could be on either side. You know, I'm thinking of where the checkout desk was in the middle.
Right.
In the middle, it would be nice to have like some sort of common coffee station, bathroom, those sort of amenities in the middle. Office or gallery space or artist workshop spaces on either side of the big window.
Yeah.
And then in the basement, the children's room. Maybe that's another possible office space, meeting room.
Okay. So
Kind of general to meet all the things that people have until we find who's going to be there.
So what we will be looking for there is kind of, we're going to fit it out for a commercial tenant shell, non-kitchen.
Yes.
Non-commercial kitchen, but it would be nice to have a place where you could put a coffee pot or a.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
They could
I
figure
don't
that
know
out.
what
They
that-
could
that could figure out.
yeah, you could put that in without, because you're not going to need, like, it's about the water and the sink facilities and the bathroom facilities and like the,
Well, we do need a bathroom,
yeah,
and that bathroom
But-
that was in there, pretty
but-
grungy.
bathroom. No, it looked pristine when I was there. I don't know what you're
Well,
talking
it's
about.
fine.
You were sniffing the mold in there.
Back in the
The
corner.
black mold might have had an impact on mine.
So just to say that it would be, I like the commercial shell that would it be retail also in there, would you think? Or
Well, if you said like a retail / office shell, what we basically end up with is empty finished space that
Right,
someone would have to subdivide if they wanted to put offices in it.
or studio.
or a studio or something
Yeah,
like that.
like that, you know, like that. I mean, that would be, you know, and you probably want to say, I mean, so you need to make it ADA compliant.
Yes, it needs to be ADA compliant.
And that means for the basement, you'd have to have an elevator. Unless there's a way to get a ramp down to the basement. And I don't know about because I know there's multiple doors into that basement space.
We should be able to just like stick an elevator on the outside of the building.
You can do it. It's doable. Is that building in the historic district?
No, it is not.
Bordering it, but
It's right on it, on the edge.
It's not in the historic.
I mean, that being said, we don't want like a weird looking elevator sticking outside of the building. But
You make it look kind of historic and you could do it.
there's right near where I live, there's an old brick building not as nice as that one, but they built a brick exterior elevator space on the outside, and they put, arborvitae's around it.
We could make it glass and there could be a viewing area, and when you rode up to the top, you could see, it's an amber river. But anyway.
So my suggestion for the library is retail, so like retail / commercial / office shell, probably divided into 3 separate spaces, which would be the 2 wings of the upstairs and the downstairs, with common area, bathrooms and facilities kind of in the middle. Kitchenette.
That fits with the survey. Commercial retail space with them, the highest.
Yeah.
The next one was other public uses, such as, can't read the word, such as a museum or public office.
So if we did it as that kind of like generic space, we could fit multiple uses in the building.
Right.
We could have, offices downstairs. We could have a town office downstairs in the basement. We could have other upstairs be,
Yeah.
The grand administrator could sit over in the library with a big office in the basement.
Anyway. Okay.
So something like that, to a 3 space shell with common area bathrooms. So I can write up an RFP for that. Right. We're going to write up an RFP to set up the Harbor Fire Station as some sort of museum or display space. Yes.
Okay.
And then we have the Central Fire Station.
Okay.
That's the one with the most varied responses.
Yeah, well, I think there's it's in the middle of downtown. It's very visible because of the spire, and
it got the same it got pretty much the same breakdown. If you look at the graph, one side is the Hart Library, one side is the Central Fire Station, and it's pretty much the same. Commercial space, retail space. If I were going to put a commercial kitchen in anywhere, that's the building I'd put it in.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be really nice to have a cafe in there, no matter what it was, that someone ran, that we leased out to someone to run, and have a coffee shop. You're in town shopping, I'm not trying to take away from any of the existing, but it would be nice to have a coffee shop or the option to go there and have a sandwich. Or
I think a cafe might work. I think a coffee shop is challenging because Dunkin' Donuts is right there.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's a tough.
But some sort of
people around here don't like to skip their dunks.
Or gourmet.
Yeah, you don't want to. But a cafe.
I'm just thinking if you had the downstairs was an open winter's farmers market, or I don't know, if you were having retail in there, it's nice to have a place where you can go get some sort of refresh. That's what I.
And one thing I was thinking about that space was kind of I've seen, so you see it a lot where it's a restaurant or some sort of eating establishment, but it's got either art or kind of museum display things on the wall.
Okay.
Like it's like a gallery, but it also like it functions as an eating space with the gallery around the outside. So you're sitting and having lunch in a gallery. Mm-hmm. So I feel like something like that might be interesting because it serves a dual purpose. It might make it a little more interesting, especially if there was a rotating if the gallery was rotating different pieces in and different kinds of art in or crafts in, that you'd have a reason to go in there that wasn't just the food. You also go in to see what the gallery space was having as well.
Well, I've worked in restaurants. It would be the restaurant that chose the artists and rotate the artists. And I worked in one in Concord, which was, they had wonderful artists that were in there, and the artwork that was there, A, was for sale, but B, it rotated every month.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah, there's a gallery
that was in an old fire station too.
There's a gallery in downtown Lowell that did the same thing. It was it had like the old deli counter bar where you could sit, and it had, you know, a bunch of regular seats, but all around was a rotating gallery of artwork that again was for sale or and rotated around.
So how would we request for?
So I think that would be, because I think the gallery piece is something you wouldn't have to have a contractor build. You would just have to make sure that, you know, yeah, you want a build out for a small cafe that has display spaces for display along all of the walls. And then that would be kind of part of.
What would you do with the upstairs on that?
Well, see, that's a good question. I have never been upstairs, so I don't know what it looks like. I don't know is there space up there to do anything?
Be an apartment, couldn't it?
I guess it could be.
It could be a residential.
Is the ultimate goal to sell these outright or to
No.
rental?
To
keep them in
lease them
Lease them.
to an organization or
We could maintain them.
Yeah.
We lease them for cheap and you maintain it. That's I think
Well, my thought is, even if it was a meeting space on the top of it, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, that kind of stuff, because we don't have any real place for that type of thing. I think it's more. I mean, we need space like that for some of the youth stuff that we have around here.
yeah.
You know.
So if that is okay with the board, if those three things, I can try to write them up and bring them back on the 21st.
That sounds
I'm good.
Okay.
Good with that.
I think we also need to get the shared streets thing out, because I'm worrying about getting it bid out and then having the time to get it done. The money has to be spent by June 15th. So that's
Yeah. So we need to get through.
Okay.
And when we do this RFP, you'll get a sense of what it will cost to bring this vision, right? And then will it also include how long it'll take to make return on our investment?
Well, I think the goal would be that we're not investing anything. We're asking for an RFP for someone to come in and prep these spaces for us because they love us.
Okay.
You know, I think the idea would be we're going to be asking for someone to come in and prep the space, and you know, if there were the cost, we'd be wanting to know how long it would take for us to defray that cost, or if there's suggestions for how we could fund
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna make sure we have that information.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Thank you.
The rehab.
Okay.
The two DLTA grants were submitted to MRPC today. Good. I talked to Karen. She gave me some direction. But they apparently everybody's submitting for the MBTA communities, so I think she's determined that every single community in the MRPC is going to have some hours for MBTA communities. The Green Communities Grant reporting got done.
So we can move on.
Finally.
That is good.
So, I talked to Rob from facilities, about, we need to coordinate with Ron about the specifics about the issues that are in the facility capital requests, but also might be great.
Oh, good, okay.
And that's that.
I'm moving down unless anybody else has anything for Eric. All right, reports from board liaison, so general government. Lisa, do you have anything?
Yeah, so we'll start with the green communities. We're gonna be looking, next week, they're going to, be out here, have a rep out here from, this company out of Princeton. Be looking, at the town hall, as part of the green communities program, looking at, I believe, at the boiler system. We're also looking at the library, if I remember correctly, in Squanicook School this year. But I think the town,
I thought they had asked not to do
Yeah.
1 o'clock, but I don't know.
the committee has determined, should not be. I'm sorry. I said we
Yeah,
decided to
no,
skip that one. Okay. So the library and the town hall. So they're moving forward with that and gathering information on that. Capital planning is moving forward. We're meeting with tomorrow. We have a meeting at 5 o'clock. We have asked department heads to bring their budgets forward. We're meeting with 3 departments tomorrow: facilities, water, and highway. Tomorrow, then we're following up the week after with fire and police. So within 2 weeks, we should have the complete capital plan budget together. And one additional aside for that, we're also looking to possibly put the capital plan into ClearQuest because it is free this year. And it looks like it's pretty easy.
That cleared up, is that the thing that we got, asked to,
Yeah, I signed you up for it.
Yeah.
All 3 of you.
Yeah, I know, we're getting emails.
Excuse me?
I just want to ask Eric, I thought they were entering data for us, and I played with it,
Yeah, there's Townsend data in that,
where?
under Townsend.
Yeah, there's multiple years of financial data already input, but they're not.
And I couldn't find.
So they're not done with the data input, but there's
I couldn't find anything. It's all like 0, so maybe I'm not clicking
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, you have to look into the financials and not into the budget side. You have to look into the financial side.
Okay.
But we're
Thank you, thank you.
we're gonna play around with possibly putting the capital planning, because we're on old spreadsheets with that too, so it might make more sense to put that in there too.
Yeah.
The only thing we're concerned about, we do have it free this year, but we don't know if that's a separate module and if there's a significant cost to it, so we wanna look into that.
Well, I thought we had a grant from.
We have a grant for this year for the full,
This
for
year,
everything.
Right. Oh, so
This
that's what
year.
you mean
Yeah.
by free.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, we get it this year, but I don't wanna get this year, get it all in there, get used to it, and then next year it's like, oh, well.
We're not gonna do that.
It can be yours. You
So-
know?
That open.
Holding our information.
To everything, right? Because I'll feel terrible about that. And then, finally, finance met at 4 o'clock today. Kathy Spofford, presented her budget, which is pretty much level funded. I think it came out at 1.5% increase. We discussed a little bit how, our concerns about the school budget, what we're gonna do, how we need to get everybody needs to get together, kind of get a what do you call it? Common message out there, how we're going to present the budget this year, get on board early, the finance committee, the school committee, and the select board, getting all out there early. what happens if the budget gets passed, and, you know, what our alternatives, you know, where there's any play in our budget, because the only place we have it right now is with track, and that's the holy grail in the town.
I mean, that's where we get the biggest bang for our buck.
But, you know, it's untouchable, so.
You know, you want the trash, but you don't want to pay for the pool. I don't know if.
I think we just have to go full steam ahead and everybody on board with the project and have a ride.
Right, so that's what I think, and we just go from there, but we should have a plan if that doesn't pass, even for us. If we have to fund the pool, even at 4 or 5%.
Yeah. We gotta help them get their numbers down, especially because of, you know, what, you know, potentially next year, and they're working hard on it, but we do have to have a plan to.
Yeah.
Help them.
The only thing we can hope for is the state.
Yeah, well, that's what I
not-
meant, work with the, elected officials, et cetera. And that was all I had, Madam Chair.
Anything
Oh, let's see.
I can talk about health and trust.
You can talk about housing trust, but I'll talk about, I've been working real close with the water department. I guess this is part of an announcement as well. As you may or may not know, there was a substantial increase in the water service that was going to Deluxe Corporation. That services South Street, which also would be part of Kimberly because that's kind of their inlet to the water down there. They had substantial flushing of their system, of the new system that they put in there, which is kind of discolored the water. The discoloration is going to be prevalent for the next couple of days, according to the water department. It's due to the dead end piping that's all in there. It just kind of stirred everything up. And the discoloration really is magnesium and iron that was in the pipe. It looks disgusting, but it's not harmful. But it is, you know, it's a pain. If you have any further questions, feel free to talk to the water department, and they can give you more information in regards to that. We do have them on the next agenda, I think, for their presentation. They had a presentation in regards to the rate study. Instead of agreeing to a 5-year rate study, they decided they were going to review it every year, only because of the water treatment plant. And I thought that was a very good move on their part. But they want to talk to us about what was brought up in there and what their decisions are moving forward. Very active, even though they only have 2 commissioners. They're very active, and they've been dealing with a lot of the residents, and I think they're doing a great job as far as where they're at. I also want to kind of give a shout out to the rec department. There's a lot that they do in the rec department, and I just feel that they don't get the credit that they deserve. They're coming up with a lot of services, working with with Emily in the what's her title? Community services. They're coming up with a lot. They're also in the middle of their ski with the kids and that kind of stuff. But I just want to thank Emmy and everybody over there. I need to talk to you in regards to an email account that they want to get set up over there too. But I just want to thank them. I feel like they don't get enough credit for the amount of work that they do.
Can I speak up about the rec department just real quick? This is something that Emmy and I talked about earlier this week, which was the potential for having the rec department provide childcare for at the annual town meeting, in an effort to try and allow parents who have small kids to come and vote, since we need folks to show up and vote. And so, we are gonna be working with REC to come up with a funding source so that we'll be providing some free childcare at the annual town meeting in May.
Good.
So for any parents out there who are listening, we'll be kind of broadcasting that as it gets closer, but in an effort to try to make it more accessible to the families who have little ones at home.
That's the kind of work that doesn't get noticed. I think Emmy and all of the people that work over there, the counselors, especially during the summer, they're doing a great job. And outside of that, since our last meeting, we haven't really been hitting the road with planning and all of those boards as well. So more will be revealed.
So I just have on the housing trust a couple things that are going to be coming before. One is what we already talked about, CPA. The other is a bylaw for the housing trust that needs to be put in place, so it's in the E-code, not just in the declaration of trust. And then on the declaration of trust, there are the trust will be voting on amendments on 1/27 to the declaration of trust itself. Because right now, the way it's written, we can only use 5% of the funds that we have in a year, and we're using ARPA money, and that doesn't work. So there needs to be
needs to get spent.
Yeah. So there are two places where we're going to put in bylaw amendments to the bylaw.
To the trust document.
To the trust document, and that needs to be approved by the trust and also by the Board of Selectmen. So, and then filed at the registry. And all resignations and appointments to the trust have to be filed at the registry as well, and we haven't done that. So that's gonna have, well, we have money now to do that with. Yeah. And so we'll get that taken care of. Kathy did send me, but she had all not the initial appointments, but those were done in a meeting. So that's different. The resignations of all 5 original trustees, and then the appointments of the 4 of us that are now on the, she had all of those. So I have those to get to the registry. So we'll be working on that. And that's it. So,
nothing with public safety?
Nope. Eric reported on FEMA.
That was the bubble.
So,
Is it no negotiations or anything?
We don't have one scheduled right now.
Yeah, we had one scheduled, but then it got canceled and we haven't rescheduled.
Right, because Bobby was supposed to come and then didn't come.
I can do a very brief one, which is sometime soon I'll be bringing forward the consolidated fire contract.
Oh, good.
So they have a consolidated contract they presented. I just have to double check and make sure that they didn't try to sneak anything in.
All right. Moving on, announcements and communications. We have a Bay State Forestry announcement for Townsend Rod and Gun. They'll be doing a forestry cutting there. There's a Unitil controlled outages webinar. If anybody here is interested in attending, I think that's for municipal staff. UPWP grant is coming up February 28th. I was wondering if maybe we shouldn't do an intersection study. I was going to call Brad, or if I have MJPC tomorrow.
Yeah, Brad.
And see about an intersection study at Proctor Road and Route 119, even though that isn't in Townsend. You know, that combined with the high school, so that we have a study that's current.
Yeah, that was on our punch list.
So that's what I see for UPWP, but it's due February 28th. So at our next meeting, if it's going to be, we'll write it up for that, I guess.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
What about looking into changing the blinking light in front of Sterilite to a light you can press to make it a stoplight?
You mean a rapidly flashing blinker? Okay, so we did Perhaps our town administrator could approach Fairlight Corporation with that. What we were told when we did shared streets, because we wanted to put one in there, was that it was in the work. Fairlight was doing it themselves. And that don't touch it. Because that was brought up more than once. It's even in the intersection analysis as planned for RFB, because I thought Fairlight was doing that on their own.
I can touch base with both Mass DOT and Sterling.
I think that would be good, because it would be nice to have that.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about, right, if you're going across the street, you push the button, it says.
Like what we installed, but
And it says.
that's all,
Right, yeah.
and what we installed. Anyway.
Okay.
I can certainly reach out and figure out
so I
if
think that would be good, so you get the lowdown on that, because at this point, I don't know.
I do know that there was an email that went around. I actually think it went to Beth from someone from Mr. Shepherd about Stairlight being willing to put things in. Just how do we get permission?
It takes MassDOT permitting, and that was the reason that it didn't go in.
But maybe I could do some MassDOT permitting,
maybe
strings and get it done so that people don't get
so anyway.
frogger to get to their cars every day.
I don't disagree with that. It's just that was the
Something
all right.
needs to be done.
Yeah, I can follow up with it.
So that's the UPWC intersection study at Proctor and 119, and I will contact them on that. And then the other is that everybody got the community one-stop for growth. I would like us to put it's due the preliminary, the expression of interest is due March 17th. I have a lot of ideas for this. Jeff Street parking lot. I put updating town buildings, downtown rejuvenation, crosswalk. We have that lovely crosswalk study to make all our crosswalks in town ADA compliant. The only ones that are the ones that is the one out there that we put in for shared street. Nothing else is ADA compliant. Nothing. Okay. Housing, I looked at the community planning grant program. Might be nice for 55 and over and affordable housing to get more done with that. Brownfields Redevelopment Fund, 97 Main Street. These are the expression of it. You're supposed to say, these are our projects, and then they're going to tell you this is where you go.
Right.
And then underutilized properties program, I put town buildings there to look at. I know we have the RFP thing.
They're flashing beacons on your mind.
Okay. So, and then I wrote down we do playground equipment, handicap access, everything in town needs to be looked at. So those are things that I think we could put in for the expression of interest for March 17th, if only we had a land use completion.
Well, we can maybe just sit down and try to crank some.
Look at it and see what we can throw in there.
Yeah,
and then
they require.
Depending on that, full application is May, June.
Okay.
So if they come back and say, ooh, this is perfect for this. So, I think that's all I have. Our next meeting is February 21st at 6 p.m. Is there a motion to review and sign payroll and bill payable?
I'll back up just a minute. The meeting at 6 p.m. is there a reason we're doing them at 6 now instead of 7?
Well, it allows Eric to come from work without driving home at midnight. And that's kind of why I have to.
Let's do it at 5, actually.
5 o'clock, but then we have people that work.
5 works better for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't work better for Chaz, I don't think. So,
I'll just say, I've been here a while, Teresa, and it's been 6 ever since I've been here.
No, it was 6, it was 7 when we started.
No, it's always been 6. It's been 6 forever. It's been 6 before I was a selectman.
You're thinking about school
Way
board
back
meeting.
when?
It was 6 when I was the conservation commissioner. It was 6 when I was on the plan. I don't know.
Madam Chair, I move that we review and sign payroll and bills payable, warrants out of session.
Second. Stephanie, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Motion to adjourn
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
at 9:13. Second?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're good then. All right, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.